So good evening again, everyone. Let's begin with the second half and the most awaited, much awaited panel discussion of the day. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome our panelist of the day. So I have to begin with, I would like to welcome Miss Paromita Banerjee. Ma'am is a textile and fashion designer based out of Kolkata, and she is an alumnus of the prestigious National Institute of Design class, NIT class of 2001, with over 20 years of experience in the field of craft, design, and textiles. She owns a brand, Paromita Banerjee. You can definitely check that out on Instagram and Google, her website. She has more than 14,000 of followers on Instagram, and she works with weavers clusters across India, innovating fabrics at the loom stage, which are then fashioned into garments. Her studio is based in Kolkata, and her brand's signature style has references of Japanese minimalism and has a trans-seasonal heft. She has been a regular at the Lakme Fashion Week and the India Fashion Week under the Fashion Design Council of India since 2009. The brand has represented India on a number of occasions at the international fashion events, significant being representing India at the United Nations Fashions for the Development and Peace show in Shanghai. Ma'am was one of the finalists of the British Council Young Entrepreneur Awards in the category for Design for Social Development. In 2022, she won the Devi Awards for Dynamism and Innovation in Design from New Indian Express Group. She is also a guest lecturer at design colleges like the National Institute of Fashion Technology, that is NIFT, and her own alumni, National Institute of Design, and is also called for speaking at sessions on design, arts, culture, and entrepreneurship. So when we see ma'am's designs on Instagram or website, we can see how beautifully she expresses her personality and her way of thinking in her designs. So ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. To
Thank you very
begin
much.
with,
Thank you.
thank you, ma'am. So to begin with the introduction of Miss our second panelist, Miss Anuradha Ramam. So ma'am is a self-taught designer. She did her B.Ed, and then after marriage, she decided to pursue her passion and make it a profession, which is quite inspiring for all the Indian women, especially that there is no age to turn your passion into profession. So you will see that how beautifully she plays with colors in her design, and with her, you can notice in our design the three beautiful words with our beautiful eyes, which we can see the color and design, which are bold, bright, and beautiful. So it's a pleasure to have us with you, ma'am, today. And now the next, I would like to introduce our moderator for the session, Miss Suhrita Majumdar, ma'am, and we have already had a beautiful presentation with her. So, ma'am is not only a great IP professional, she's also an artistic person, which I have personally observed. She makes some paintings in her like as a hobby, and she has some amazing ideas. This panel discussion was ma'am's idea only. She said that why not to have some industry experience from the fashion industry itself and how they look IP as the how they look IP and how they proceed with the some counterfeits, suits and all everything. So over to you, ma'am. Let's begin with this panel discussion.
Thank you, Manya. Thank you for arranging this session. This is very interesting, very different, and I'm very excited that I'll be kind of interviewing both these superwomen designers. So yeah, I have a few questions. Now these questions were so we kind of discussed these questions before the session, well before, while we were actually preparing my slides. Because as you all know, I mean, I'm presuming that most of you are here, the ones who attended my session. It's about the rights of the designers. So, of course, what we discussed was what we've read in books and some of the case laws which we've come across. But having it from the horse's mouth is little different from, the way I tried to explain. So I thought we'll put those questions to them. So if I may start with Paromita. Hi.
Hi.
So the first question is, having been in the trade for such a long time, what does it take to create something which you create? And are you IP conscious while you're doing your own collection?
Okay, thanks for this August gathering. It was quite an elaborate description of me, and I hope I'm able to live up to it in the middle of the interview, as Suhrita calls it. Thank you, everyone. So to answer your question, yes and no, simply because I think as designers, we are firstly a creative lot, very emotional, very greedy to have our designs out there. And secondary is when we think of laws and IPs, because when we are trying to create a new creation, as logically as it may be, we try to focus mostly on the designs, what the inspirations are, what our ideas or where our ideas really come from. The IP part of it is mostly secondary. But having said that, I think as a conscious designer or as a conscious brand of around 12 to 15 years of experience, I know when I'm putting pen on paper, I know when I'm brainstorming, I know I will not encroach on work or design that is already done. As designers, like I said, we're emotional, so mostly our inspiration comes from anything from history to architecture to even things like miniature paintings or temples or frescoes or colors of Rajasthan. It could be anywhere. We are creative people at the end of the day, but primarily as a conscious and responsible designer brand, I would make sure that I'm not encroaching on designs which are already done. I think that's a given. uh, I think when I'm looking at IP, there is not much that designers, or at least not much that I know personally. So I do not know the technical bit of it, but all I know is yes, now because Instagram or social media or technology is so much on the forefront. Yes, there are encroachments on design. There are encroachments on people or brands doing similar work and calling it or passing it off as inspiration. I think that's where the legal head really comes forth. But I think as designer brands, we are mostly conscious initially of just what we are creating. Anuradha, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we really get very wayward when it comes to design concepts. Responsibly, we don't always think of where the inspiration stems from. But being a responsible brand, I think we are conscious of not encroaching on anybody else's scope, isn't it?
Yes, so Anuradha, I have the same question for you.
The question is about intellectual property, right? And the process.
Yeah, so I remember that you had asked me not to mention IP, so I will only say creations.
So, as designers, we are actually artists to begin with, and we, as Paromita just said, that we are not involved in the legal aspects, of patenting or, copywriting our designs. It's just going with the flow and creating and being very happy, designing something new every other day and being inspired by it. And it's a source of our happiness. The entire process of creating, taking, from the life around us, or something might inspire you without even your knowledge, and then putting it down on paper and finally deciding about the fabrics, this entire process of the people involved behind the scenes, the back end, and finally something you design, it just gives you happiness and pleasure. So, but you never know, that particular design which gives you pleasure today can also give pleasure to so many people who can be inspired to get more inspired by it. Like, as I read a quote which says, I think your idea to use my idea was a great idea. So you understand that that's the underlying thought.
So I know from where it is coming. We can, we can go there later. Okay, so I'll put the next question to you, Anuradha. Here, so the next question is, imagine you're standing in front of a room full of aspiring fashion designers. What would be your suggestion to the youngsters in respect of protecting their creations?
in our life, and as we have experiences, post creation and multiplication of your designs and everywhere possible, because they are inspired by it. But I would tell the younger generation that your designs will be copied 100% if it is beautiful and if it is interesting and it arrests everybody, and it's mind blowing. People will copy. What they will do, what happened with my designs was the pattern. Paromita will know that the pattern, the direction is changed. I had a tribal motif with hand and an eye and an om. So when that was copied, the hand went this way, the eye went that way, and the entire direction. So now how do you say it's your design? But it's your design. The direction changes. The om doesn't read as om, it's just flipped. So like that, many designs are copied, but somehow they look very grotesque. But it's a copy, and you are, as a creator, that it is your design, which has kind of been bombarded on and taken a new meaning for someone else. So it's constantly happening. So the youngsters should not be afraid. They should go ahead with their creativity, but they should prepare to protect their designs. But I would like to ask Suhrita, like, we don't have one design in our mind. We have, if I could use the word millions, like artists, millions of designs. So how many do you trademark? How many do you patent? How do you protect all your designs? Or are they just inspirations? And so that is one area I'm not sure about. But I would tell the youngsters not to be afraid of being copied. And it is not, and when people copy you, it's not flattery. Let me tell you that it's not flattery. It's just a quotation which makes other people feel good. But you go through a process of going into depression or feeling sad or low when you see your designs ripped off, and then you have to emerge from that like a butterfly and start flying. But you have your past experience of hurt and pain and feeling low and not feeling good about it. So I think you have to go ahead. You have to do better, not better, like do new. Create something new every other day, something else, so that they can't catch up with you. That is one thing. And always protect yourself. For the younger generation, they still can. They have more life to their lives.
Paromita, you would want to add to this?
Yes, of course, I would want to add. I think what I would primarily want to add here is, as a designer, there is always and there should always be a certain ethics in place, which I think the younger generations sometimes, because they are so creative or because they want to rise up higher and quicker, I don't know what it is. I think sometimes the ethics bit of it is lost in the milieu, is lost in the noise around. So I think if you're ethical about knowing where your inspiration has come from, you will stop right there. Like, for example, there's a very fine line, there's a very gray line between what is a given, in the sense there are designers who do bridals for lakhs and lakhs of rupees. Yeah, there are many designers who do that. There would, in every locality, in every region, in every metropolitan city, there would definitely be stores doing fakes or duplicates or copies of them, simply because the mass is not able to afford a lakh worth of a lehenga. So in that case, what do? Do you go and sue every single locality shop that does it? You don't. As a customer, suppose I'm a customer, I'm not a designer with a brand to my purview. Suppose I'm a customer, wouldn't I look at the price point when I'm buying a wedding lehenga? I just can't afford a lakh lehenga, for example. So I would still be buying knowing it's a fake of a XYZ. And as a commoner, I'm going to get married in it. It's as simple as that. So here I would really want to stress on the fact of ethics as to how that is also important in the bigger picture. But having said that, ethics also, always has a gray area. And here the gray area is how much can you afford? And the ones who can't afford, what do? They would buy fakes. So as a legal, as a lawyer, Suhrita, what do you say to that? You have it in every locality. Delhi has it, Kolkata has it, Surat has it, So I don't think it would be possible to sue each and every component of the entire hierarchy and the chain. And there you go. And also what Anuradha also mentioned, if you're inspired, if you're changing subtle things from the original, then it doesn't become yours anymore, And like there isn't a price or there isn't a mileage that I can put for creativity. Once the creativity is out there, it's just on paper or it's just on your product. If the person who is copying or imitating from it, no matter how flattering it is for you, frankly speaking, it's absolute bullshit. The flattery and the validation and all of that, it's rubbish. You do feel bad, you feel sentimental, you feel, dharti cheer ho jaye, and you jump right in and all of that. But frankly, it happens everywhere. You feel disheartened, but you move on simply because you have 1,000 other designs in your head. So I think there's like a real fine line between ethics and what can be done and cannot. Yeah.
I am grateful and I'm hopeful that we don't have copycats in this session.
Well, we're going to spot you right there and make you get back to your ethics quotient. Yeah. No? Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
I just have a little point here. So, the thing with design patents, from what I understand, legally you'll be able to help better. Like, for example, simple things like a swish in a Nike. Or, for example, I had heard even Coca-Cola bottles were patented because of the original curve of it. Simple things like that. Those I think are easier to catch. Like, for example, a Louis Vuitton logo. A person who would know that you're not buying the original Louis Vuitton because there would be a subtle change in the Louis Vuitton logo. Or Michael Kors, for example, or a Fossil, or any brand with an identifiable logo. But in design, where the entire product line, there are subtle changes in it, I don't think it's easy to pinpoint or it's easy to sue each and every person in the cycle who is going ahead and doing fakes,
Yeah, it's quite difficult actually. Yeah. I mean, in case of ones which are photocopies, even then, if you have multiple, houses copying the brand, then you may not have a certain budget to go and enforce your rights because you don't know how many to go and chase. Like, how many entities would you go and, move the court. So therefore, it is difficult. But then, yeah, I mean, some of these major names have actually, chased some of them, of course, as you rightly mentioned, mostly before the Delhi High Court, where they did get favorable orders. But I'm presuming those are the products where, or the designs which were very, very important to them. Probably not every article is, they don't apply for design registrations in respect of all articles, but then the more expensive ones, or the ones where they feel that the article needs to stay for a certain amount of time or multiple seasons, probably that's when they decide on protecting and then enforcing their rights. So I was actually reading up one of these cases where I think Anju Modi, there is a designer by the name of Anju Modi, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, she kind of sued somebody, one of these busy stores somewhere at Chandni Chowk, where they were selling her designs, and I think even the invoices had mention of her name, that Anju Modi style or something like that, where it was of course a violation. So in such cases, probably they identify the ones who are most busy selling those infringing products. They would probably pick up those stores and attack them. But then, as you rightly pointed out, with designs, it's very difficult because if it's not a photocopy, then it's also difficult to go and convince the judge. So coming to the next question, whoever wants to take it up first. Yes. Sorry, you.
Can you show the original design picture and the varied picture to the judge, and just show him that a great wind has been blowing past this design, so the entire direction has changed. But it's the same thing.
I'll keep it in mind for my next pleadings. Okay, coming to the next one. Legal issues can sometimes feel like unexpected hurdles on the runway of your career. Can you share a specific legal challenge you faced and how creatively you overcame it and turning it into an opportunity for growth? You do not need to name, any entities involved, but
Sure.
kindly share your experience.
Okay, so there are two in my instance. One is I changed and I overcame it creatively, but the other I didn't do anything about it. One was, of course, this is on the open forum, so I can of course mention this is by the KVIC. Like for example, khadi now is a patented, copyrighted word. So all of you here in the panel, khadi, the word per se is copyrighted now. It has a patent. Unless you have a KVIC certificate, a designer cannot use the word khadi in any of the products. And by khadi here, I mean to a layman, hand-spun, hand-woven cotton, which has been woven by hand on a handloom. That is what khadi means. The original khadi woven by, spun by Mahatma Gandhi, right, during the freedom struggle. So KHADI, khadi. Now, our office was sent a letter by KVIC saying we were using khadi as a term to sell products from our website. Of course we were. There was no denying it. So the khadi that we source is from weavers who weave the hand-spun, hand-woven cotton on the handloom, and then we shape them into garments or even shirts that I'm wearing, etc. But because the word was patented and copyrighted, we could not use it. We could change it to something else. So what we did, my legal team, not my legal team, my advocate, I don't have a legal team. I wish I did though, because now I think things have become really complicated and you really need to have a legal team to go on things with full force. So my lawyer wrote back a letter saying, yes, of course we use khadi, but here the khadi denotes the hand-spun, hand-woven cotton. It does not denote a particular product. We will henceforth not be using khadi, the term KHADI, and instead we would be using hand-spun, hand-woven cotton for our products because that's exactly what we do. No, we are not licensing and taking a certificate by the name from KVIC, but we will just be changing it. Simply because we did not want to, stretch it or did not have the traction to do a legal case or fight for it because simply, khadi, the word had been patented. So that's that. And so right now we do sell khadi products, but we call it hand-spun, hand-woven cotton. That was one where we overcame it creatively, as the question points out. The earlier instance was, I think, around I think at the beginning of my career when we were consecutively doing Lakme Fashion Week every 6 months. So I would, of course, the shows would happen in Bombay and I would call my close clients and the who's who, etc., who were part of my client profile. So at a further distance, I saw a client wearing one of our products, which was around 2 seasons back. I felt, overjoyed saying, oh, wow, our stock has survived and she's wearing it 2 years and she's come to show me, etc. So I go up to her and while I was going close to her, I realized, no, you know what, this design is not mine, even though the design completely is, but the fabric, the way it looked just wasn't mine. Then I went up to her saying, I thought you were wearing my design, but it's not. Where did you buy it from? So she mentioned about a multinational conglomerate. Like here, I will not be able to name. And then they have branches all over India. So what they had done was a tie and dye. Tie and dye is basically you tie a part of the cloth and then you dye it. So it becomes a hand technique, which laboriously takes a while. So this brand had actually converted the same thing into a print, So the resisted part was actually a block print, which was easier, not even a block print, a screen print, which was easier to duplicate. We didn't go after it simply because it was earlier part of my career and I did not have the traction or the bandwidth or the energy or did not know whether or how I should be tackling a multinational. So I left it at that. No, I did not feel validated. I felt rubbish. I felt sentimental. No, I did not think I had arrived, because mostly interviews are given as such that, oh, you've arrived if you've had a copy. No, I didn't think I had arrived. I just felt very bad that, it had happened, but I couldn't do anything about it. So yeah, those were my two instances, Shrita.
Okay, I think I kind of know the name, and anyway, I can relate to it. I mean, it must be really frustrating, especially when there's so much of hard work going into it. But yeah, I mean, that's how perhaps it works, right? I mean, there is something which is handmade and something which is real, organic, etc., and then you have a print. So it's like, something which is cooked on an oven for, hours, and then you get something like a fast food delivered in 10 minutes. So it's like that kind of an effort which goes into creation of something which is coming out of your head. So yeah, Anuradha will also, I'm sure, have had such experiences. She's she
I
seems excited to add to that.
early on when I was just into my business. We had someone come to my Munirka flat where my back office was in the beginning, and buy my entire lot of fabric that I had developed, saying that they need a lot. There is some project going on. They require it for that, and so I was so happy that I was selling it all, you know. And then on the FDCI first fashion show of that person, I see my entire fabric. Even the curtain in my back office was cut by that person to form a sari, part of a sari. Like the person didn't have the normal wit to, take the curtain off the rod. She was in such a hurry, and I was traveling. I was not around. She cut it, and then later on the ramp, I found everything on the ramp. I didn't have the courage to go after them. I had my lot of journalist friends who recognized my designs on the ramp and said, "What's going on, Anuradha?" But that time when you start, you don't know what to do. You just feel shattered because, and then you are afraid because you don't know, like they are so big. How will you like clash with them, or how will you pick this issue up? So you are completely at a loss. So I think you only start thinking. So I that's what the new generation, the designers, the freshers, they should know about these things, like how designs are completely taken from you, and you feel so happy you've sold such a lot. But when you see them all ripped apart and on the ramp and other places, then you feel so terrible. So that was one experience, and another experience was my entire my red, black, white collection that I always make was given away to a person by my embroiderers. Like they completely cheated me. And then again, I tried here. I spoke to the person who had done it, and they apologized. The community with whom I work, they apologized, but it was very difficult. So I said I'll take it up legally, but they asked for forgiveness, and so that's it. I've never taken it up. So what do you do? It's just so difficult. And today I have the courage. But when that all these experiences happen, you don't have the courage. You're trying to balance your life, your work, your careers, everything, so that life goes on smoothly. But you need a lot of courage, you need a lot of balls to pick up this injustice and take action. And so information is very important. That is where you are, you feel that you can take, if you have the information, if you have the leads, you can really take action or frighten that person so that they don't continue doing it. So that was my experience.
I think this is another gray area where, having worked with some designers or a couple of contentious matters where we noticed that if you are working with a certain cluster and the domain is such, you may not have agreements with those people who may be working on a like a job worker basis. So therefore it often happens that you have perhaps identified a particular set of people you think for the next 6 months they are going to work for you, and then eventually you realize that they have been sold, like as in some other person probably, or a competitor following you knows that okay, you've perhaps approached this set of this team, and they know that okay, if they go to them and probably pay the same or whatever. But then that's a gray area where of course in case of uh, other industries there would be set agreements between the one who's the creator and the one who is actually at the back end working for you. So that is also, I feel, something which is very important, because we worked on a case where I think I had mentioned this earlier to both of you, that we were working on this one of these major jewelry design infringement case where we got to know that the defendants had actually approached the job workers who were engaged by the plaintiffs to kind of create those jewelries which were totally handmade. And handmade jewelry is no longer very common because most of it is produced by machine these days. So that was quite funny. But then when we tried to get into it in detail, we realized that there is no system of having an agreement in place, because that's how the industry works as a whole. So it's not like nobody would agree to execute an agreement. So if you go and say that, okay, you have to sign up, or you have to get into a contract with me, the person might as well say that, go to the next one. So therefore I realize, and I can understand that you would face such challenges, and it's continuous. And eventually we even thought that we would send an investigator, get an interview done and record that interview and then place it as an evidence. But later we realized it's going to be, we also need to understand how it's going to help us. So we were like, okay, probably once that person is again called to court, he may just deny that that's not me or whatever. So eventually, fortunately, the other side came up saying that, I mean, they realized and they acknowledged that it was infringement, and it was consciously done. But the fact remains that these are certain gray areas where we feel, people like you would always face, it's quite a challenging area where uh, if you are working with these kind of people, because at the end of the day, you are actually trying to empower them, but they don't realize that what you're doing is for their benefit also, because obviously, as we say, I mean, we are more fond of fast food than something which takes time longer to be cooked. So they want ready money, and if they get the money, they're happy. They don't care if it's your IP or it's a case of theft.
Nowadays they're saying chagole khe niyeche didi. Paromita, the saris are not coming. The saris have
Brilliant. Yeah. So the chagol are goats, who the ones who don't know. So chagol is goats. So the goats have changed their appetite, it seems, from grass to greener pastures. Yeah.
Sari. So I said,
Yeah.
because I'm sure the goat was not so hungry that they say no, that even the pieces we have just thrown away, we can't show you. So you can imagine it's like this working.
Poor goats, huh? They would have had a tough time digesting that, but
Yeah.
But imagine such creative ideas. I mean, they have such good excuses ready, like amazing.
So Suhrita, to continue from what I would want to rather add, so to the youngsters who are trying to get into the field, I think one thing they should always keep in mind, that to build a brand, to build a sustainable brand, it's always one step at a time, right? It's the same for any business. So don't always take the easy way out, because nowadays I think we pay more attention on quick money, quick returns, rather than building a stable platform. By platform here, I mean by building a brand, a repertoire, a vocabulary, a brand, identifiable brand, with your identity, etc. So I think to the youngsters, I would really plead, if you want something everlasting, give it time. Don't go in for quick fixes. And I think something born out of years of work, years of experience, I think holds the stead for longer, is sustainable for much longer. And it might be validating to have your designs or ideas come from somebody who's already worked hard on it. But in the long run, you're just going to fall flat, which is why I think as designers, we're not mostly taken seriously. We're a very volatile department simply because there are many of us. There are too many of us. Every gully, every mullah has a designer now. But the ones who survive are the ones who have a rooted, what would I say, a rooted root rather than just trying to make quick bucks in a month or a year. So I think that would really, hold you in the longer run. And that's my only advice, because at the end of it, because there's always such a fine line between what is copied and the result of the copying, you can't always sit and sue everybody. But again, to big brands, I think we could advise to send a lawyer letter. Suhrita, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Usually a lawyer letter or official letter usually, deters them from making the mistake or thinking that they might be sued the next time around. But having said that, how many lawyers letter can you send, and to how many? Because there's a whole duplicate industry flourishing in India, as we know. And yeah.
Okay, I have a question, like somebody like a layman. So now that all of you are so active on Instagram, for example, or Facebook, and if you come across something, did you ever think of writing to them directly on Instagram or making it public to say that, this looks like a copy of my creation? Did you ever consider that, or did you ever do that?
Well, to me, it hasn't happened. After the two instances I've told you, it hasn't happened. So, which basically means I haven't arrived. But then, no, it hasn't happened to me on Instagram or social media. Yeah, simply because I think we are a very niche segment of doing very ethical, hand-woven, handmade products. So, I think the commercially viable products aren't looking to copy something which is as tedious as handmade and handloom, and thank God for that. So I think, no, so far it's not happened to us yet.
That's good news. How about you,
Yeah,
Anuradha?
Instagram, I did see my black, white, red collection, but I had already spoken to this woman, and I had told her that if she does that, I will send her lawyer's letter and everything. So she apologized, and so I did not say comment on her post, but I think she took them off.
So you are actually taking away our jobs. That's not good news.
I think I
No, but that's good. I mean, so which means that it's not only about you being followed, but you are also able to keep an eye on what's happening in your domain. And if there is anything which you think is like a violation or conflicting with what you've created or what belongs to you, you are able to, at the first instance, at least it could be you who could take it up with the concerned, which is also a shift from what has traditionally been the process, like where somebody gets copied or there is an encroachment, and before even thinking twice, the person would reach out to us saying that, what is it that we should do. But it's great to see that these changes are coming in where you are able to identify and you're able to take it up yourself, and a phone call works, or an informal email also works, so which is a good thing, which also means that the person realizes instantly that, okay, I mean, I did copy but I got noticed. So that is a shift I see. And then and of course, I mean, that is good, because a lot of clients have suffered in the past where probably they never took it up at the right time, thinking that it's going to be a waste of money, or what should I do? A lawyer is usually very expensive, and let that brand grow. Because if you don't protest, then obviously the person grows, and the law eventually says that, okay, you allowed the person to grow. So, what is it that you want now?
Yeah.
So, which is also something great. I mean, also of course, there's a shift in the mechanism, but it is for good. Great. So coming to the next question. So this is almost like a continuation of the last one, but I'll still ask. Counterfeited products or cheap copies could be like mischievous fashion imposters. If you were a fashion detective with superpowers, how would you track down and bring justice to these counterfeit villains and protect your designs? That's like a 007 question. Whoever wants to take it up first.
Basically, you have to call them and you tell them that you're aware of it. Write to them on Instagram. Now we have the courage because of past experiences to take action. So that's one thing. You can call, you can take action, you can consult your lawyer, you can send letters, emails, and threaten or tell them that you are going to threaten, something like that. कितने गोली है, show the bullet, show the revolver, all those things. Basically, you have to take action instead of just sitting and moping or thinking that मैं तो लूट गया. ऐसे नहीं होता. मैं लूटा तो क्यों लूटा? अब लूटने देंगे, अब लूटने से रोकेंगे, action लेंगे. I think that should be the 1, 2, 3 steps.
So I'll add to that. So there's a common designer we know who actually also comes up with cheaper alternatives to his designs, so that he's able to make it more affordable to the masses. And in that way, he's actually been able to sort of counterfeit his copies by having lesser price products of his own brand selling in the market for those people who are not able to afford his expensive products. And I think that's the smartest move I've ever heard. If you're able to do that, brilliant. But having said that, common sense says it's not possible all the time. But if you're able to, have a sub-line of the stuff that is getting copied, to have more people being able to afford your products, then you're able to fill in that void. Because usually the copies are of 1/3 of the price of the original, right? And as a customer, I would of course want to spend less, wouldn't I? So if you're able to, as the original designer, you're able to give in cheaper alternatives to the market at the real brand name, then why not? That could also be another way. A very smart way, rather. A very smart way, yeah.
The fast version nowadays.
And also, having said that, mostly designers get copied because of the price points, and that's fair enough, of course. I mean, let's be realistic. Sometimes, or most times, people say, or the mass or the layman says, our prices are, artificially hiked or fancy pricing, but the layman would not be able to afford it. So, if you're able to make breadth options for our own designs with the same label, then why not? Let's have more people wearing it, Yeah.
That's a good idea. So yeah, let me mention here, I noticed that people from a certain place, like somebody told me that I'm not going to buy from you because from another area, we have Anuradha Ramam for less. So we buy from them. So, this is exactly the same point, that reduced for clearance. Have you heard that term? Reduced for clearance. When we travel abroad, they don't say discounted, they say reduced for clearance. That means it's perfectly all right, but we have reduced it so that you can afford it. So here also, Anuradha Ramam for less. So we have copies, but at a lower price, and big, very bad copies, but that essence is there and people want to buy that. So Paromita's point is, I think I really appreciate that we should also have a cheaper line of our own brand and sell it along with our expensive clothes. That's a good solution.
Sounds interesting. Okay, so Manya tells me that it is a room full of lawyers. Now, I would want these designers to say whatever you think is relevant outside what has already been discussed. So you can say what you want, and then we could ask our audience to put their questions.
Okay, so room full of lawyers. This one's for you. You all have to lower your price point so that there'll be more of us coming to you to have our letters written and to have you all help us to sue XYZs who copy us almost every single day. Yeah. And pat on the back to me for that brilliant question, wasn't it? Or solution rather, yeah. So room full of lawyers, this one's for you.
I would go with Paromita.
So
Lawyer should
I'm
be
still
put-
wondering if I should react to that question or that suggestion, whatever it is. We're talking to some high-end designers, and I was just thinking of saying that, you know, if you have any questions for me, let me know. And then I walk into your store, I pick up something and I say, okay, bye, thank you very much. Anyway, that was on a very light note. So Manya, should we have questions from our audience for the designers?
if we have any, I don't think that chat box is also empty, but just like call for questions if we have from anyone. Otherwise, I think that panel discussion was quite an brief, like we covered all the aspects which we could have.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, Savita.
Questions are not there, but I really enjoyed your session and discussion. All things were clear and all gratitude was